Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the quarterly data quality process. This will be one of two webinars. Both webinars will be identical, so tomorrow will be the same as the one today. If you are unable to hear me or unable to see the presentation screen, just let me know in the chats or the questions function. Okay, so the agenda for today, we're just going to kind of go over the context of the quarterly process, missing values and data issues, child-only entries, utilization, timeliness, who participates, report details, overviews, the submission process, the data quality timeline, accessing and reviewing the report, troubleshooting, and resources. So to begin, the Chicago Continuum of Care utilizes data-informed approaches to coordinate services and resources in efforts to end homelessness. Homeless Management Information System, HMIS, data quality is an important factor to measure efforts to end or prevent homelessness. The COC relies on the work of all providers of all funding types to enter accurate, complete, and timely data to ensure we have the information we need as a community to make informed decisions. So due to this importance on data, in order to maintain data quality, providers in HMIS are expected to participate in a quarterly data quality process that address data quality in the four areas. Again, missing values, data issues, child-only entries, bid utilization, and timeliness. The first thing we're going to look at is missing values and data issues. So the report that we're looking at currently would be the overall data quality report that's available in Business Objects. This is kind of just a screenshot from that. So of the data elements, which include name, social security number, date of birth, race and ethnicity, gender, veteran status, prior living situation, length of stay, relationship to head of household, client location, domestic violence, disability at entry and exit, income at entry and exit, non-cash benefits at entry and exit, insurance at entry and exit, and destinations at exit. Of these data elements, no more than 5% of clients enrolled in your project can be missing any data element, including client doesn't know, client refused, and data not collected answers. So this is very similar to how HUD views these particular answers, such as client doesn't know, client refused, and data not collected. So this is identical to how the APR would view these data elements. Okay, the next thing we'll be looking at is child-only entries. This particular field is also located on the main data quality report out of Business Objects. There must be 0 child-only entries in your project. A child-only entry is flagged when a client under the age of 18 is enrolled in the project without being connected to a parent or guardian. This can happen for 2 reasons. So a child came in after the initial head of household or guardian was enrolled, and the entries weren't done correctly, so the child does appear to be in a complete separate household than the parent, or if the client's date of birth is missing. If your project serves unaccompanied youth under the age of 18, we do ask that you submit a help desk ticket just so we can flag your project for that, because the report will not take that into account. So the next piece would be utilization. Bid room unit utilization must be within the following ranges. So for emergency shelters, it has to be between 80% and 105%. For transitional housing, it has to be between 80% and 105%. For permanent supportive housing, it has to be greater than 85% or 85% or greater. So if it's over 105%, it'll still be in compliance. Safe haven, between 85 and 105%. So the utilization looks at how many clients were enrolled in your project. For permanent supportive housing projects, the housing movement date is kind of a factor in your client pulling into utilization. On April 5th of 2023, as compared to how many bed units are indicated in your bed and unit inventory setup for your project. So the point in time date that we will be using for this round of data quality would be April 5th of 2023. We'll talk a little bit more about it when it comes to running the report. If a project is under or underutilizing their bid list, but is in compliance with their unit utilization, then the project will still be in compliance. The opposite situation would also count as being in compliance. So as long as either the bid or utilization is in compliance, the project as a whole will be considered compliant for utilization. So the screenshot of the report that you see is the utilization piece. It's broken kind of out into two separate sections. You have your bed utilization and your room utilization. Bed utilization is looking at the number of beds your project has versus the clients enrolled on the point in time date, where the room and unit utilization is looking at the units available for your project and the households enrolled. So if your project only has single inventory, meaning that you only enroll single clients, then your bed and unit utilization should be identical, as the beds should match the units. If you have a project that does serve families, then it's likely that your bed utilization and your room utilization will be completely different. But if either one of these are in compliance, then you will be in compliance overall for utilization. The final piece will be timeliness. Timeliness is tracked through an automated report created by All Chicago. This timeliness report will track timeliness at entry, at exit, at housing moving date, and for shelter services. The timeliness measures the time it takes to create an element in HMIS. This measure applies even if the entry date is backdated. For instance, if a client originally came into your project on February 1st of 2023, but they were not entered into that project in HMIS until February 15th of 2023, the information will be considered out of compliance, as it took 14 days to indicate that the client was enrolled in your project. Again, timeliness cannot be corrected, so the report that you do receive is more of a FYI than a call to correct anything or a call to action. But again, even if you have a client that came into your project February 1st of 2023 and you backdate the enrollment to be accurate as of February 1st of 2023, the report that you receive will still show that it took 14 days to enroll the client, just to keep that in mind. If you have any questions about timeliness, again, please feel free to submit a help desk ticket. So who participates? All projects regarding of funding are required to participate in the quarterly data quality process, so long as a project is active and has at least one client enrolled. So for data quality this quarter, we're going to be looking at the beginning of the year until June 30th. So any client that was active in your project during that time range, so if you have a client that was active during that time range, then your project would be required to participate in data quality. And we do have an article on our help desk of active projects that are expected to participate in data quality. The list that we have here might include a project where you didn't have any clients enrolled during that period, which would kind of indicate that your project would not participate. There might be projects such as services only, in which your services only project might not actually do enrollments. So if that's the case, then you wouldn't be required to participate because you actually don't enroll clients, you just provide the services piece to it. But if you have any questions about it, please reach out to the help desk and we can definitely talk through that. So report details. Reports must be generated for one project at a time. So if you have at your agency, if you have 5 projects in which you going to be submitting data quality reports for, and let's say they're all permanent supportive housing projects, you will have to run 5 separate reports, and you wouldn't be able to combine them all into one and submit it. And then the report period, again, we'll be looking at January 1st, 2023 to June 30th of 2023. The point in time date in the report itself will be set for April 6th of 2023. It says 2022 here, but that's a typo. But it is looking at April 6th of 2023. The reason for that is that the report is actually looking at the point in time date plus 1 day, which will be April 6th, even though the information that's being pulled is going to be for April 5th. Okay, so just the overview, the data quality process will go from August 14th through August 25th. In the previous data quality process, we were looking at a year time span, so we provided additional weeks for the data quality process. This time we're only going to be looking at 2 quarters, so we have about 2 weeks for this data quality process. There will only be 1 round for submission, so providers will not need to send in data quality reports until they are ready for the final submission. The business objects reports, which can be downloaded by users with Access Business Objects, will cover the following: the missing values, the child-only entries, and the bid utilization. Changes made in HMIS will not generate in business objects until the following day. So if you identify an error in or identify an error in the report today, and you correct the client's information and you go back to run the report again today, the report will not change as the database hasn't updated yet. The next day, that information will be available and you will be able to see those changes. The SQL report will be sent out to agencies and will cover timeliness. And again, those reports will be sent out either today or tomorrow. We do have one question here. Okay. Questions about generating reports one at a time. I have been running reports for our 5 permanent supportive housing programs for internal data quality between the last project and this one, and I run them all at once. I thought that was fine, so wanted to ask why can we only generate 1 report at a time? If I understand, submitting each report separately but can you give me more information on why you would want to ever generate more than one report at a time if it's not for submission yet? So if I'm understanding your question correctly, so if you're just reviewing your data and kind of just going through it and making corrections, I believe that's fine to combine all 5 projects and just kind of have one report just to work through all of the errors. But for the submission piece of it, you will be submitting individual reports for each project. Um, so each project should have its individual report. Okay, perfect. So we have another question. Can you briefly explain services for timeliness? Is that required for all programs? I also sent the ticket right now. So the timeliness piece for services, I'm not 100% sure just off of the top of my head. I don't want to give you the wrong information. So I'll look at your ticket and reply back to you. And on the help desk, I will kind of add these questions so that the answers will be posted. So I could definitely follow up with you on that. Okay, so for the submission process, reports are to be submitted by August 25th, which is the deadline. The files must be renamed using the naming convention that we have here. So when you download the report out of Business Objects, you're unable to kind of change the name to something custom. The file name that you're going to have is the Chicago DQ underscore 4 consecutive dashes underscore year month date. Once you download this report within your file explorer, you're going to want to change the name to replace the 4 consecutive dashes with your project ID number and the date with the date that you're running the report or the date that you're going to submit the report. The date really doesn't play too much of a difference. The most important thing is the project ID number, but you do want to make sure that the date is in there. For the project ID number, most projects have a 4-digit ID number, so that's perfectly fine just to put that in. For projects that have a 3-digit ID number, we do ask that you put a 0 to start off your ID number to make it 4 digits. That piece is pretty important just because we don't want to make sure that your report doesn't get pulled incorrectly to be reviewed. Okay, so sending reports. This piece is also pretty important. So when you're submitting the reports, you're going to want to make sure that you're sending it to dataquality@allchicago.org. Again, this is the only place where you can submit these. So if you're submitting it via help desk ticket or to a member on the team, it might not get included in the results. Just so to make sure that everything goes smoothly, please send it to dataquality@allchicago.org. And then also the subject line must be data quality report submission attachments. This is again another piece where since this is an automated process on our end, if it's not, the subject line isn't exactly like this, it's not going to get pulled in correctly. These slides will be available, so you will be able to kind of copy and paste from this if you need to. But this is also available in the help desk articles. And then agencies with more than one project can attach all their data quality reports together in one email. No need to send them separately. And then we do have a question. Can we please get a confirmation email that they were received successfully? I can go back to the team and see if we can put that together uh, for this process, but I don't want to make any kind of promises to say that. If it's not set up currently, we'll have to definitely review that and see if we can get that together. Can you explain the need for organizations to submit this information when you have access to it? It's a very good question. So the reason that we asked for this entire data quality process is that the way that the system is kind of set up is that visibility is different. So depending on what agency you are and your client, the information that you actually put in might look different than the way that we actually pull the information. Your question actually goes to another point that I was gonna make a little later. But even when kind of submitting help desk tickets to us, is really kind of important that we get a report sent to us because even running reports from our end, the data might look a little bit different than how it does for you. So the overall goal for this is just to make sure that we have accurate and complete data in the system. Um, so this is kind of just the best way to go about that. Okay, so the data quality timeline for this round. So we did send out communications on August 8th. Today is the start of the data quality process, so everyone can access the report starting today. The report itself is set with the correct prompt parameters, so there's no need to change anything. We will again be hosting another webinar tomorrow in case any members of your team might want to join that one. The correction period is between August 14th and August 24th. So I like to put this here just because even though the submission date is August 25th, the correction period being until August 24th just means that ideally you want to make any corrections by this date so that you have that the next day to actually pull the corrections that you made. If you make corrections on August 25th, you won't be able to pull a report on August 25th that's going to reflect that information. And we don't have I don't have a date of the final results being posted, but ideally it's going to be the following week. Okay, so accessing and viewing the data quality report. Okay. So hopefully everyone can still see my screen. Okay. So when accessing the business objects report, um, from your main homepage, you can click connect to business objects at the top right of your screen. You can also click or expand the reports tab here and click business objects on the left-hand side. Doing so will open up a new tab and it will bring you to business objects. To locate the report, you're going to want to click on folders, public folders, Chicago Live folder, Chicago COC reports, and data quality. Within this data quality folder, there are several reports. The one report that's connected to the data quality process is the Chicago DQ underscore with the 4 consecutive dashes. This report here. So this is the only report that we're going to be running when going through this data quality process. So if we click on the report, it will pull up a set of prompts for us to adjust. So we have select provider being the first one here. For this example, I'm just going to choose our All Chicago Emergency Shelter project. The project start date is from January 1st of 2023. The end date is from July 1st of 2023. The reason this isn't June 30th is that we want to make sure we capture all data up until midnight. And again, the PID date, although it's April 5th, the prompt here has it at April 6th, because again, we just want to make sure we're including all information up until midnight. So these are already completed for you. You don't need to make any adjustments. Again, EDA provider should always be left unchanged. So if it says anything but default provider, your report potentially could not generate or generate incorrect information. So just make sure this is left as default. And the only thing that we're going to be changing is the provider at the top. And we're going to click run. Okay, so once the report generates, you'll have the tabs at the top. The initial tab that you're going to see is the client summary. This particular tab is going to include all of the data elements that we'll be looking at, the child-only entries, and the utilization piece. One thing to kind of just point out here is that when you're looking at the data elements, keep in mind that you look at the required for section or column also, just because it indicates who's being looked at for these measures. So if you take name, for example, we're looking at all the clients that enrolled for errors. But if you're looking at client location, we're only going to be looking at the head of household only. So these are good to kind of review, just so you make sure you're not adjusting things that aren't needed. The next tab is the client details key. This tab is essentially kind of just a map to where all of the questions are located in HMIS. And kind of just an overview of how the alerters are set up within tab B. So the next tab is the client detail. So this tab here is the overall details of what makes up the data elements in the summary. As you can see, it is pretty long to look at, but anything that's in red potentially would need to be corrected. There are cases where you might get client doesn't know or client refused, and those are accurate of what happened. The client might have declined to provide that information. So it might show as an error on the report, but that's just due to how HUD views that answer overall. The next tab, C, will be going over child-only entries. So again, this tab will show clients under the age of 18, as well as clients that are missing a date of birth. So one thing that kind of go hand in hand is that in the client summary or in the summary tab, for date of birth, if you have errors here where you have null values, more than likely you're also going to have those same errors for child-only entries. So if you have 3 clients and they're just missing a date of birth and they're all adults, once that's fixed, that should also fix your child-only entries. The following tab would be inventory information. So this just gives you an overview of what your inventory looks like in HMIS. You'll have your participating bids, and then you'll also have your available units. What we're seeing here is kind of an indication of a single unit list for singles, so households without children. Some projects do have 2 inventories, one set up for singles and one set up for families. So if your project is set up that way, you will actually see 2 columns here, one for each available inventory through this reporting range. So for utilization, when you look at something like bid inventory, it's going to be looking at the cumulative bids available for your project. So that includes the family bid. So it's not going to just be looking at single bids, it's going to be looking at the cumulative of the 2. And the next tab is just additional information, just telling you the prompts of the report, the reporting range, the date that you ran it, and also the total clients being counted in the report. Are there any questions on accessing the report or reviewing the report? Okay, if any questions come up, just feel free to ask them in the questions section. So troubleshooting. Again, overall, the client detail key is probably your best friend when it comes to troubleshooting the report. Kind of one thing to point out within this table here is that the name and social security number are kind of the only 2 things that's going to be located outside of the enrollment assessment. So these things will have to be adjusted within the client profile and not within the actual assessment itself. But as you can see in the chart, so we have sale contents. So if the sale is yellow, it's kind of representing not an error, but low quality data. So approximate social security numbers or partial names or partial date of births, those will be reported kind of in a yellow color. They won't show up as no, they will show up as things that will need to be corrected. The dashes are displayed for elements that do not apply to the client. So again, as we seen that some things are for the head of households, some things are for all clients. So if that particular element doesn't really apply to the client, it will be represented with a dash. Also for exit values such as destination, income at exit, uh, disability at exit, if the client hasn't exited the project yet, that particular field will also be represented in the dash. Null and data not collected values in red will indicate missing data. Mismatch and HUD verifications. So this only applies to sub-assessment data such as the disability, income, non-cash, and insurance. So for example, income, if you answer is this client receiving income and you answered as yes, but in the sub-assessment you don't indicate an income for the client, that will report in kind of a mismatch because you're saying that the client does have income, but then in the sub-assessment you're not indicating what that income is. For HUD verifications, if you're saying that the client has income and you put that income into the sub-assessment, but you don't complete the HUD verification to say that the additional benefits the client is not receiving, you'll receive that HUD verification error. Keep in mind when completing or troubleshooting these errors for the sub-assessments, if it's an error at entry, you're going to want to go to the pencil by the start date. If it's an error at exit, you're going to want to go to the actual exit assessment to make that correction. If it's an error in both, then you should start with the entry assessment since data flows through to the exit. So potentially if you correct the entry, it'll also fix the exit. And then again, in this table here, everything that's being represented in the client details should show up in this table here, and it will let you know exactly where you can find it. So resources and user support. So we have two thorough articles on the data quality process. One is the data quality process overview, and one is running and interpreting the data quality report. Both articles pretty much goes over exactly what we covered today. Both articles will be available in the emails that we're sending out and in the slides that's going to be available after this. Other helpful links would be the sub-assessment and HUD verification articles that we have, documenting the housing move-in date and relationship to head of household. This kind of goes over a lot of the tickets that we receive. So I think these three articles would help assist in, correcting data. Yeah. We do understand that there may be need for further training or assistance for users that are new to the process or have forgotten how the report process kind of operates. We are offering assistance through help desk office hours. To request that, you would just need to send in an email or a ticket to helpdesk@allchicago.org. These sessions are limited to 30 minutes. This doesn't include the time in the email exchange. But sessions will be done online via Microsoft Teams. It's installed on your computer prior to the call, just so we don't eat into the 30 minutes we have available. An agency technician or an ATA or someone with business object access must be on the call as well. So let's say the person with access to business objects isn't the one that's actually reviewing the report at your agency. And that particular person might have a question about the report. We do ask that everyone, the person that ran the report and the person that might have the question be on the call. And then also, please have your reports available at the time of the call or email the reports you plan on referencing beforehand. Again, this is kind of important just because it helps us kind kind of troubleshoot things prior to the call, so we don't, waste a lot of time. If there's things that we can figure out prior, that's always better. And then again, it's always best for you to send us the reports that you're running and the reports that you view from your viewpoint. Just because when we run reports, from the All Chicago viewpoint, it potentially could look different than how you might see it on your end. So just to have your perspective is always the best way to go about that. And then just have time for questions and answers. So if there's any questions, please feel free to ask them, and I can try to have some answers for you. Okay, we have a question. As the ATA, to, should I be submitting them all together once staff has made all of the corrections? Um, so that's kind of up to you. So if you want to kind of wait till all the reports are together to submit them, that's fine. If you want to submit them as you complete the reports per project, that's fine also. Okay, we have another question. I am the ATA for Trilogy, but not for Interfaith, but I do not oversee one of their projects. Should I submit that project? Um, I think this would be better if we can kind of just talk through it, just so I can have a little bit more understanding of the question. So I'll follow up with you after this. Okay, if there's any more questions, I'll keep the webinar going for a while, but thank you everyone for joining. Okay, we do get another question? No. But no, again, thank you for joining. I will keep the questions open for a little bit if any additional ones come on. But any questions, please feel free to reach out to the help desk. Okay, we have one. I am new to being an ATA, so I can't contact the help desk for confirmation on which programs that must submit this so that I will be correct. Yes, please feel free to just submit a help desk ticket and we can definitely let you know the projects that we have that you should submit. So organizations are being assessed solely on the when will the recording be available. So this recording ideally should be available by the end of the day today, um, but at the latest by end of day tomorrow. All right, thank you everyone for joining. I'm going to end the webinar. Any additional questions, please feel free to reach out to the help desk. Thank you again.